Okay, let's add items to the game and a player. Right now, the game is at a checkpoint from the last homework. Let's sort of get oriented here. So I've done a couple of changes. I renamed graph to be world, but this is just your old graph class. I just renamed it. Oh, let me delete some stuff I'm not using. And then the inner class node I renamed to be room. So now whenever I say get room, that's like your old get node method. Okay, so the first thing I want to do, you'll notice up here in main, so like we've got our world, that's the old graph. And the way we keep track of where the player is we've got a room variable called current. That's where the player is. So I think actually before I think about items, let's go ahead and make a player class. And you'll notice these little windows popping up. It's because I'm using Git to track my changes. So it's just asking me, do I want to add this to my Git repository? And the answer was, yes, I did. All right, so a player. So let's give players a name. That seems reasonable. And maybe a description would be nice. And then the main thing we want is the player to have a room. So let's say world.room. And then, instead of calling it world, maybe I should call it level. I think that's better. Current room. Okay, so let me teach you a quick thing. So here I've called it world, but I've changed my mind. I want to rename it. So you can right click and say refactor, rename, or you could use the shortcut Shift F6. And I'm going to call it level. And now it's been renamed everywhere, including all the places I just was. So now the current room is called level.room. And I think that maybe makes more sense. And so here as well, level.room. Whoa, what's happening? Let's make a constructor. Let's see. I want to construct with a name and a description, I think, or maybe just a name. So let's see, what I'm thinking about now is, do I want it to be possible to make a player without telling the player what room it starts in? And I think the answer is probably yes. Do I want to be able to create a player without a description? I think that's fine. So let's just create players with a name initially. But I don't want the description to be null, so I'm going to set the default description to be empty. And then let's set the current room to be null explicitly. It's a little bit nicer though. Let's actually overload the constructor. So let's have a version of it where we've got, well, no, I don't want to do that. Okay, and I think it's reasonable to make getters and setters for all of these. All right, great. So player is done. So now let's change main so that instead of just having this current room, we actually have a player object. So I'm going to create my player object up here. My player is going to be called Wally. It's a good player name. All right, so then here for Wally, instead of saying current room equals get room this, I'm going to say player dot set current room to be get room hall. All right. This is feeling bad to me. Like we should probably be carving this up. Because we're doing a lot of initialization, but it's all kind of mixed together. So like we're initializing player and then some world stuff and then back to player. I don't like that, but we'll come back and try and fix that in a minute. So now we shouldn't have, oh great. So I deleted the current room variable. So that's created now a bunch of errors, but that's good. So you are currently in the, and so now let's say player dot get current room. So this is going to return a room variable. Our room variables I don't think have a toString. So this is just going to display as the memory reference to the room. Let's give it a toString, which just prints the room's name. That seems like a nice solution to me. So room public string toString return this dot name. All right. What What does it think the problem is here? Oh, this is okay. So we're in the process of fixing this. All right, great. So far, so good. So that should work. So let's keep going down and fixing all the problems. So here under Go, we're saying get the neighbor. All right, so maybe let's rewrite this method entirely. So we're checking. So this is checking to make sure that the thing they typed is actually correct. So the first word should be go, and the next word should be room name. But this is the thing that actually moves us to the next room. So this feels like maybe I actually want it to be the responsibility of the player. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this, and let's just say player or p dot. I'm going to also call it go to match the command word. Is that what I want? I'm going to call it move to room. That seems more explicit. And so I'm going to give it the name of the room I want to move to. So let's create that method here. I'm going to paste the same code from the other location. What did I call current? Oh, it's called current room. So now I'm trying to do all that same stuff. So I'm inside player, but the player is going to ask the current room, do you have a neighbor that has this name? And if the answer is no, it'll return null. And so we'll say you can't go there, try again. Otherwise, we'll just go ahead and set the room there. Okay, that's seeming pretty clean. Oops. Okay, so let's keep fixing problems now. So here for look, so this is the same deal. Let's say player.getCurrentRoom, and it'll just print out the current room. Same thing here. Player.getCurrentRoom. Oh. Wait, maybe I didn't read that closely enough. Oh, we need to add the actual name. So player.getCurrentRoom.getName. Okay, great. So we fixed all the problems. So now I'd probably want to just run it to make sure that it's okay. Okay, in my testing, I've discovered I was not thinking carefully when I did this. So when I look, I don't want to say that I can go to the current room. I want to say I can go to the neighbors of the current room. So we wanted to get the current room and then get the neighbor names. Okay, let's keep testing. Here, I'll just show you the testing I'm doing. It's not very thorough testing. I'm just playing, really. Okay, I can go to so let's go to the closet. Let's try and go to the library first. Okay, so I can't do that. Let's now try and go to the closet. It worked. Look, okay, so that's all the testing I want to do. All right, so let's make an item class. And the item class, well, hold on. All right, so we said that we wanted items to have names and descriptions. And then maybe for the moment, that's it. So let's make a constructor that only requires the name. Let's make getters and setters. For everything. Okay, so the item's done. I'm going to implement what's probably the most straightforward implementation, and it's not necessarily the best, but let's discover along the course of our programming why it might not be the best, and we can refactor later if we want to. So I'm imagining a player is like a container for items. So let's make an array list of item called inventory. And let's put that in the constructor. New array list. Okay, and so then let's do, okay, so then I'm gonna need a way of giving my player items and removing items from my player. So let's say add item, item I, and we'll just say inventory.add I. Let's say remove item, and this time let's give it a name. And the reason why I want to do it with a name here is I don't want to already have to have the item that I want to remove. That would be weird. Like I'd need to get the item and then tell it to remove. I think it makes more sense to use the name. Although we should note here that for this to work, I'm assuming that names of items are unique. So we could never have like 2 lobsters. And maybe that's undesirable, and we can come back and think about that again at a later stage. But when I remove the item, I'm trying to mirror the API of ArrayList. So for ArrayList, when you remove something, you give it the name of the thing you're trying to remove, but you give it the index of the thing you're trying to remove, and it will give you the actual object that got removed. So similarly here, if I'm going to give it the name of what I want it to remove, I want it to give me back the item. Because, like, let's say I want to drop an item. If I choose to remove the lobster and then I want to add the lobster to the room, I'll need access to the lobster item. So let's return inventory.remove index. So index goes, so this is like maybe not so, this is maybe not so efficient, but the first rule of efficiency is only worry about it if it's a problem. Okay, so if inventory get index get name equals name, so in that case, let's remove it. Otherwise, we'll return null at the end. Okay, and then I'm also going to trim the name. Great, so I've got a way of adding items and removing items. What else might I want? Let's maybe keep it there for the moment. So now over in level, I want each room to have the same thing. So array list item, inventory, same thing here, new array list. And now let's just have those same methods again. So I'm going to split vertically. I'm over here in player. I'm just going to copy those same 2 methods. And I use the same variable name on purpose so that I'd be able to copy them. Okay, great. I think we'll most likely need some other methods, but let's discover what they are by now trying to implement the new commands in main. So I'm going to add them at the beginning. So I'll say if first word equals pickup, then let's do this as well. Oh, this is getting longer and uglier. Except not room name, this is going to be item name. So if I say pick up, if I don't have another word, please type an item name or type look to see items in the room. Otherwise, we'll get the next word, and that's going to be the item. And now I think it's nice that we have the player. Let's go ahead. I really got to rename the player. So pick up item name. Let's do that. And then first word equals drop. Yikes. Okay, I think that's made sense. So same thing here. Please type an item name. Let's have look display all the pertinent information. Maybe we'll need a new command for seeing what items we have. Maybe let's have a new command called inventory. Okay. And so then we'll say p.drop item name. Otherwise, let's add the inventory. Else if first word dot equals inventory. Then we're going to do p.get inventory string. I'm going to name it get inventory string to indicate that we're returning a string that tells us what all the items are. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and rename player now because this is irritating me. I really want to see it say player the whole time. Okay, let's start doing it. So inventory string, I'll do that one first. It's going to return a string. I think what I'm not going to use string builder here, although if we wanted it to be efficient, we should. But again, efficiency isn't going to matter because the limiting speed factor is going to be the speed the player's typing. It's not the speed at which we build the inventory string. So we're going to do that. Let's loop over all the items. And then we'll say out plus equals i.getName, and then a space and a comma. So let's do this. If inventory.size equals 0, then let's return you are carrying no items. That makes sense. Otherwise, we'll build the string by looping over all the items and printing the name and a comma. And then at the end, we'll return out.substring from 0 to out.length minus, and we're going to subtract the last 2 because we don't want those there. Is that going to make sense? Otherwise, let's start out by saying you are carrying or let's just do this. Let's just say your items. All right, I think that makes sense. Let's go ahead and implement pickup item. So in pseudocode, pickup item, what I want to do is I want to try and remove item from the room. If fails, display message like room doesn't have the item. Otherwise, we'll get it and then we'll add item to player inventory and maybe print success message, something like that. Okay, so now it seems like it would be helpful to have a contains method so that I could say if current room contains. If current room doesn't contain item name, then I could print current room get name doesn't have the item name. And then I'd exit. So let's do that. Item name. So you know what? I'm going to start refactoring because when I was getting, here, let's move this way up here. Okay, so when I was removing the item, the first thing I did was try and find the index where the item was, and it seems like deciding if it contains an item, I also want to find its index. So I'm going to make a method private. You should think about why it's private in a second. Okay, I got interrupted by a phone call. What was I doing? Oh yeah, so private. So you can think about why it should be private. So get index for item and then string name. So let's do this, except we're not going to remove it. We're just going to return index. Otherwise, we'll return -1. All right. And so then for contains, I can say return get index for item name doesn't equal -1. So let's think about how that makes sense. If I try and get the index and it doesn't equal -1, that means it must have been in the list. So I'm going to return true, which is what I want because my inventory does contain the item. If it equals -1, this will be false. And I'd want it to return false because equaling -1 means it doesn't contain my item. Okay, so I'm like making methods that build on my other methods. And then over here for remove item, I'll say if it's not true that we contain the item name, then I'll just return null. Otherwise, I'll say item I equal, or no, I can just return inventory dot remove get index for item name. Okay. I mean, it might be like a hair more efficient to do this. So let's get index for item name. There's the index if index equals -1. Otherwise, let's remove index. So now we're only running that method once. All right, cool. So let's back all the way out of that. Where did we come from? We came from get neighbor names. No, where were we? Oh, we were in level. And we were trying to, player? Yes. Pick up item. So if the room doesn't contain the item, say it doesn't contain the item and exit. Great, so we've got that. Otherwise, let's actually remove the item from the room. So item I equals current room, get current room, dot remove item name. Okay. And then let's say we're inside player. So let's add item to the player, same I. Let's use this. All right. And then let's display a success message. You picked up the item name. Great. And so now drop is going to be, I imagine, fairly similar. Let's just copy paste this and think about how we need to modify it. So for drop, I don't want to ask if the current room contains the item. I want to ask if the player contains the item. So if it's not true that player contains the item name, then I'll say you don't have the item name. Otherwise, let's say inventory dot remove. So you know what? We need all this. Okay, so I'm getting the sense here that we need another class because I'm adding all these methods, get index for, and I'm copying them in two places, in level and player. And that's a sign that we should probably be abstracting away from them. Let's do this, and then I'll have us all do it together in class next time. But here's get index for item, remove item. Well, here, let's do get index. Yeah, hold on. So those are the, and then contains. Okay, so I'm going to copy and then paste over here in player. Where did I? Okay, so remove item. Okay, great. So now the player has all those same things. And since we're in the player, I'll say this dot contains item name. Fair enough. And so now I'll say index equals, what do I call it? Get index for item name. Item name. And then we'll say inventory.remove index. So we're removing the item from ourselves. And then we'll say get current room.add item I. You picked up the item name, or you dropped the item name. Great. Yay. Okay, so I think we're almost ready to test this. Let's go down here. Oh, did I get all my bracing messed up somehow? That connects with the do. Oh, so that's the problem. How did I get an extra brace? Makes me nervous. Wow, I'm really looking forward to cleaning this up. Okay, I think it's good. Let's test it. Oh, I didn't change look. The look command needs to tell us the items. And then player.getCurrentRoom.get items string. Did I have that in player also? I did. Except I called it get inventory string. So let's call it the same thing in level. So room has no items. Otherwise, that. Okay. Okay, let's try it. So let's say look, room has no items. Great. Oh, we didn't. Okay, let's do inventory also. You are carrying no items. Okay, great. So at least those two work so far. Let's make some items now. So up at the very top, let's say item lobster equals new item lobster. Item red lobster equals new item red lobster. Oh, here's a problem. Here's a problem I'm realizing. Okay, well we'll come back and fix the problems as we realize what they are. Item 10-foot pole. A very important item. Okay. So now so we've made items, but let's now put them in the rooms. So g.getRoom hall dot add item lobster. Great. And now g.getRoom dungeon add item 10-foot pole. Okay, and then let's actually also let's add both, the lobster and the red lobster. Okay, here we go again. So now I'm gonna look. Room has items, lobster, red lobster. Okay, so pick up, pick up. It says please type in item name or look. Great, so I'm going to pick up lobster. You picked up the lobster. Great. Let's look at the inventory. Your items, lobster. I'm going to look in the room. Room has items. Only red lobster. So the lobster's gone from the room. Great. So now let's go to the dungeon. Let's look in the dungeon. Room has items, 10-foot pole. So now I'm going to drop lobster. You drop the lobster. Look, so now there's 10-foot pole and lobster, and if I look at my inventory, you are carrying no items. Awesome. Okay, so now let's do this. Pick up 10-foot pole. Dungeon doesn't have the 10. So see what happened? What happened was in my command, I'm only looking at the word that comes right after pickup as being the item name. But actually, I think I need to put back together all of the rest of the words to be the item name, because we don't want item names only to have one word. There's that's the same problem that we have with actually room names, although I think it's less common for rooms to have names that are more than one word. But I think items, we usually name items like as a description, so it's more than one word. So let's see what we can do to fix that, and then we'll be done. So, so pick up. So we still want to say that. Otherwise, we don't just want one. It's like we want to join together all of the rest of them. So I guess what we actually want to do, instead of joining the rest of them, I'm going to take my original response and I'm going to do the substring from where the first space is. So response dot index of space plus 1. So I want to start right after the first space, because that's after pickup, and then I just want to go to the end of the string. That's it. Okay, so that's the item name. Great. And so let's do that same thing for drop now. Okay, so look, pick up. So now I shouldn't be able to pick up red. The hall doesn't have the red, but hopefully I can say red lobster. You picked up the red lobster. Great. Drop red lobster. Yeah, I dropped the red lobster. Okay. Okay, so now at the end of this, let's take account of what we've done. So one thing I noticed here was this idea that player and level are both containers for items led to me having to re-implement the same thing, like the same methods over and over again for both level and player. Like they both have a contains, and they both have a get inventory string, and they both have a get index for item. They've got all this. So, so I don't really like that. So I think one thing that I want to do is I want to create a new class that's going to be it's like going to represent a collection of items, and all of these methods would go in there. I guess that would be one option. The other option, I said that players and levels are containers of items. So that word "are" there maybe means that the player is a special kind of container for items, and a level is a room is a special kind of container for items. So maybe what I want is a parent class called like item container or something, and we would say room extends item container like this. Okay, so that's interesting. That's something that maybe we'll think about the merits of in the next class.